All right, 12.9 represent data on a line graph. So kind of a continuation from the last one, I can represent numerical data on a line graph. So a little more focused on sort of what the different parts are that we need to think about when we make the line graph. So the problem we'll look at first, Johanna tracked the weight of her new puppy Tessa every week for 6 weeks. How can Johanna represent the data she has collected? So far she has it in a table, right? But remember, graphs can help us see visually what is happening. What patterns are there? Was a week that it jumped more versus like I could do the math for each one, but visually representing it helps me see some of those changes more clearly. So what kind of graph would we want to use? Well, we'd want to use a line graph because a line graph shows changes over time, change it in data values. So go ahead, we can use a line graph for changes in data values over time. Time being the important thing. So if it's just like groups of information, then we'll use a bar graph usually, like how many people chose some different categories. But if it's change over time, we want to use a line graph. So what should we do first to describe the graph? Well, first we want to think about what should I title this graph? Okay, because titling the graph really tells us what it's going to be about. So on your notes, you're going to make this graph with me. So I want you to write above it, just like it shows here, Tessa's growth. That's the title. That's what we're going to include in this graph. Now, there could be other titles, but the puppy's name is Tessa. It's how much she grew, so Tessa's growth. Now, what should we do next? Well, next we should label the X and Y axes. Remember, the X is this one, the Y is the up and down one. So we want to think about what we're putting first. So first, we'll label the X-axis with the age in weeks. So you have week, so write that, and then go ahead and write the numbers 1 through 10. It only goes to 6 weeks, but usually we fill out all the lines that are there. Do make sure you put it on the line, not in the space. We put our numbers on the lines. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. What do you think is going to be next? Our y-axis. Remember, if you need to pause at any point to finish it up, that's fine. So let's label the y-axis with weight. Now notice, I didn't use these numbers to pick what I was counting by. I looked and I said, okay, if it needs to go up to 16, that's my highest number. I can't count by ones. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 would be the top, whereas I need to get up to 16. So instead I can count by 2s, and then I'll go up to 20. Now, would it be a good idea to count by 5s? Probably not, because then we'd have 5, 10, 15, 20, and all of our data would be squished in this bottom part here. It's like we want to spread it out as much as we can, but also not have it go off the graph. So go ahead, label weight and your numbers on your graph, and then we'll put in those data points, because that is our next step. Plot the data from the table. So the first one says birth. How many weeks is birth? 0. So at 0 weeks, she was 7 pounds. So we can go 0 up to 7. We don't actually want, so I just want to get rid of that dot down below. We just want the dot up here. If you need to kind of trace with your fingers before you put a dot, that's fine. But I wouldn't draw lines. It makes our graph real messy. 1 week is at 8.5. You should have it on your paper. I'm just looking at it on my paper. 1 is 8.5. So where is 8.5 between 8 and 10? Well, 9 is halfway in between. 8.5 is halfway in between 8 and 9. So it'd be just a bit above 8. So just estimate the best you can. Less than halfway, because that's 9, but close. 2 weeks is at 10. 3 weeks is 11.5. Again, if 11 is halfway, we're halfway in between that, so we're technically 3/4 of the way up. 4 weeks is 12.5. 5 weeks is 14. Oh, I always love when they're on that line, nice and easy. 6 weeks is at 16. So there we have our points. Now, over time is generally a gradual process. So we can connect our dots, showing that it was a continuous. Now, obviously, my pen isn't perfect. My connecting isn't perfect. But we get the idea. Hopefully, your paper can be a little neater than mine. So, connecting. Hopefully, yours looks more like that. Little less like my herky-jerky one. So, there we go. We represented our data on a line graph to visualize what is happening. Now, what I didn't have you write, but I want you to go ahead and write now, in maybe the top right or that blank space, but you might need the blank space for something else. So, our first step is to give it a title. Our second step is to label the X and Y axis. And then our third step is to plot the data. I would just write those notes to yourself that those are the steps you go through when you are making a line graph. Because you're going to do one more in the next graph and then answer some questions about some data. So here you go. We're going to make another one. Sierra will save $5.50 each week for 5 weeks. Represent the data on a line graph. Be sure to include a title and labels for the x-axis and y-axis. Now, I'm going to help you figure out the points you need to graph because it doesn't give us a table. You can make this table with me, or you can just look at the one up here. So we have the week she's at and the money she made. So at 0 weeks, she has $0. 1 week, she says she earns $5.50 every week. So 2 would be 10. So I should have included that there. Of course, I ran out of space. Sometimes I don't plan ahead very well. 3. Oh my gosh, it's not $10. It'd be $11, right? Because $5.50 plus $5.50 is 11, not 10. 3 weeks is $16.50. All right, I'm going to be very not how I should do it and go over here. And again, we're in our week and our money. You just keep going below, all right? 4 weeks, we'd have $22. And then 5 weeks, $27.50. All right. Hopefully you have that data, or it's right there. So now I want you to pause the video and see if you can put that on the graph. All right, hopefully you got it graphed. Now, obviously, there's not a multiple choice question I can really ask about that. So I'm going to go ahead and make it, and you can check and see if it looks like mine looks. Now, on here, we should have written week at the bottom. They already labeled the numbers. Here we have money, or money earned. Our title, we could say like Sierra's money, right? Because it was Sierra talking about the money she had saved. So then week 1, we were at $5.50. So just a little bit over 5. Week